Come with me if you want to live.
At my signal, unleash hell.
Why so serious?
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man.
Attention. Initiating podcast protocol. Systems warming up. Operations commencing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Movies freaking rule.
What's up, ladies and gang members? Welcome to my podcast, Movies Freaking Rule. And I'm here to talk movies. Good ones, bad ones, new ones, and old ones. Why? Because I freaking love movies, that's why. And I assume you love them too. So let's get started. Alright, so first we're going to start off with some new movies that I watched. The first movie I'm going to pick is Extraction. And that movie came straight to Netflix. It's got Chris Hemsworth in it, right? So I gave this movie a try, and I gotta say it's pretty badass. It is. It's pretty damn awesome. It's pure action, just straight up action movie. Chris Hemsworth, he's pretty goddamn big badass in the movie. A lot of people are comparing it to John Wick, and yeah, you can make that comparison. It's kind of like if this movie's kind of like if Black Hawk Down and John Wick freaking had a baby or something, because. And it's about pretty much what the title says it is. He gets sent into an area to extract a kid. It's one drug dealer kidnapping another drug dealer's kid, and he goes in there, steals a kid, and the entire freaking city is chasing him. So he has to beat that ass the entire movie. Once the action gets going, it's pretty much nonstop. And one of the first things I noticed about when I was watching this movie was the fight scenes, and you could tell that the fight scenes were pretty much going to be the main focus of this movie. The plot is pretty simple. The acting isn't bad. All that stuff is okay. But the real big reason to watch this movie, the fight scenes. The fight scenes are freaking they're crazy. They're very well choreographed. They're violent. They're aggressive. They're very realistic looking, and they're throughout the entire goddamn movie. So it's definitely impressive. And what I did notice is, this movie was being billed as produced or written by the Russo brothers, right? And but they didn't direct it. Now the Russos are the same guys who directed Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. So they're pretty badass. And those movies have really badass fight scenes as well, or at least the ones where there are fight scenes, like Winter Soldier and Civil War. Now, when I looked into it a little bit more, I noticed that this director that they chose to make this movie, the director is actually the guy who choreographed the fight scenes in those movies, Winter Soldier, Civil War, etc. And when I saw that, it made sense. I think his name is Sam Hargrave. I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, when I saw that, it made sense. I was like, you know what? The fighting was badass in this movie, and I remember loving the fight scenes in Winter Soldier and loving the fight scenes in Civil War. They're very tight, aggressive fight scenes, very realistic looking. And not only that, this movie, a big reason why a lot of people compare it to John Wick is because this movie incorporates a lot of grappling, a lot of judo and Jiu-jitsu and MMA style fighting, and the director does it really, really well. So hats off to him for that. It's definitely worth watching. It's a pretty badass movie, pure action. I don't really know if it's going to be a classic or anything like that, but it's absolutely worth watching at least one time. Now, I don't want to give away too much about the ending of the movie for those who haven't seen it, but I will say they may have set it up to where, I don't know if they're going to do it or not, but they may have set it up to where there could be a sequel. So, would I want to see a sequel to this movie? Yeah, hell yeah, I would. If they can make 3 John Wicks, I would like to see at least 2 Extractions, because this is a pretty badass movie in its own right. What would I give it out of 10? I'd say 7. 7. 7's a good strong number. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Another movie I saw recently was that new Disney movie Onward. That movie actually got released to the Disney Plus app for free. With all the COVID stuff going on right now, the theaters weren't open. Shit, the theaters still aren't fucking open, which is really taking a toll on the movie world, by the way. If this shit keeps going on the way it is, this is going to be one of the worst years for movies in the history of movies. But all right, back to topic though. So yeah, I went ahead and watched it. I checked it out, and I gotta say, it was a pretty cool movie. I liked it a lot. It's definitely worth watching. Is it the best Disney Pixar movie? Well, I don't know if it's Disney and Pixar, but I know it's at least Disney. Is it the best one? No, probably not. But is it really good? Yeah, I think it's really good. The 2 main characters in the movie are voiced by Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, so that's kind of cool. 2 Marvel people. If you don't know, Chris Pratt plays Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Tom Holland is Spider-Man. What is the movie itself about? Well, I mean, you ever seen? It's funny. It's kind of like that movie Bright that Will Smith came out with. To where like the fantasy world is ingrained with the real world, right? But it's like Bright, but not live action. Less ghetto. Well, take out all the ghetto-ness and make it nice and cheery for the Disney world. But yeah, it's pretty damn good though. The movie has a lot of like fantasy characters in it, and one of them that was pretty cool that I really liked was there's this female manticore who owns a restaurant in the movie, and I think it's kind of cool because I had never known what a manticore was until I watched Grimm just a few years ago. And a manticore is like this half lion, half scorpion kind of monster. So when there was a manticore in the movie, I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome. I saw one of those in Grimm. I just read, yeah, it is a Disney Pixar movie. Man, it's crazy. It says that this is Pixar's 22nd feature film. 22nd. They've made 22 freaking movies. That's crazy. It's crazy how time flies. And there's tons and tons of Easter eggs in the movie. Way too many to go through. But definitely give it a watch. I will comment on the whole it being released digitally and bypassing theaters. That was kind of a big deal, because I think another movie did that. I think it was Trolls, right? And apparently a lot of movie theaters got pissed off about that. I guess because they're supposed to get the movies first, and they make their money through new movies, and it's not their fault that they got shut down because of the COVID stuff. So when Trolls did it, I think they threatened to boycott whatever company comes out with that movie, boycott their movies from now on or something like that. I don't know if they are going to do it, if they're going to follow through with that, or if cooler heads have prevailed since then. But it's definitely a touchy subject, and I don't remember hearing too much backlash when this movie did it, when Onward did it. But it does make you think. I wonder how they felt about the whole bypassing movie theaters and just going straight to subscription release or digital release, and if whether or not they liked it, or if whether or not they did it as a one-time thing just because the world is in the state that it's in. If they liked it, it makes you think, is this something that is going to be done more down the road, even when movie theaters open back up? Because if they do choose to bypass movie theaters, that in itself will again kind of change the whole landscape of feature films and movies, and how shit gets done. Netflix already changed the way the world works when it comes to movies. You have movies that You know, it was always, in the past, it was always either a movie came out to theater, or it was like a straight to DVD movie or straight to TV movie, you know, and like nobody took the straight to DVD and TV made movies seriously. But now you have Netflix movies that don't come out in theaters, but they still are quality movies, you know, like Highwayman was a good one, you know, and that Hoffa movie. So it's weird, you know, like, and a lot of people tend to think that, oh, this could spell the death for the whole theater business, you know, model altogether, which I don't know. I definitely think it would hurt them, and I'm not the kind of person who wants to see movie theaters go away, because there is something about being able to watch it on a freaking, you know, 100-foot screen with badass sound in, you know, a dark room, comfortable chairs. You know, that's an experience in itself, and there are movies that are so much better being watched like that. And, you know, like some movies, the crowd reaction kind of adds to the awesomeness of the movie. So you take away movie theaters, you take away those experiences. So I really hope that this doesn't spell that this doesn't lead to the end of movie theaters. I think that would be a real big shame. Alright, now the last movie I'm going to talk about that I saw recently is the new Bad Boys movie, Bad Boys for Life. Now this is the third installment in the franchise. Now, when I saw the trailer, Onward, I'd give it probably like an 8.5. Okay, back to Bad Boys. Now, the first thing I'll say about Bad Boys is when I saw the trailer, I didn't really like the look of it that much. I thought it looked kind of over the top, kind of stupid, you know. I wasn't gonna watch it in theaters, so I found the movie, I watched it, and it was okay. It was alright, you know. There's definitely some things about the movie I didn't like, but there are some things about the movie that, you know, were pretty decent. Right off the bat, I will say Michael Bay did not direct this movie. So if you're a Michael Bay hater and you watch this movie and you hate this movie, don't go blaming Michael Bay. I think he produced it, but he did not direct it, and it's the director that really makes or breaks the movie. But he did not direct this movie. It was a couple of dudes. I think they're from Belgium. I looked at their movie history. There was absolutely like nothing that I had seen before, nothing even really worth talking about it. So you could pretty much say that this was their first feature, their first big movie. And I don't know how they got the chance to work on a movie this big with, you know, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, and a franchise that already has 2 movies out. I don't know who's, you know, whose manhood they had to fellatio in order to get this opportunity, but they got it, and they gave it their best shot. And I'll say that I you know, like, you might not like Michael Bay, but, you know, like, he is a seasoned director, and he does, you know, he at least knows how to make a movie. And I'm not saying these guys don't know how to make a movie, but, you know, it looked like an attempt at 2 people who were trying to make a Michael Bay movie instead of making their own type of movie. And, you know, it wasn't as good as Michael Bay's movies, and I have no idea what kind of movie they make, but, you know, overall, it wasn't really that great of quality as far as filmmaking and directing. The story's kind of stupid. The acting is like alright. There's quite a bit of annoying characters in the movie. A bunch of young cops, and they're all super annoying, but I think they're supposed to be annoying. So, I mean, I guess they did their job. But I will say that Martin Lawrence and Will Smith were pretty badass in the movie. They were. I mean, they definitely got chemistry, and they're funny guys, and the movie is worth watching just for them. Is it better than part 2 or part 1? No, it's the worst in the season to me. It's the worst in the series to me. But is it worth watching at least once? Yeah. I mean, just for them, because they're awesome in it. They're funny in it. And the action is alright, but it's really over the top and really stupid. But you know, it's whatever. But yeah, give it a shot. I will say that it's kind of cool that they were able to get almost all the original cast members from the previous movies in this one. You know, the captain, Martin Lawrence's family. You know, they pretty much look like all the same people. So I thought that was pretty cool that they were able to do that. And there is somebody who comes out in the movie that came out in one of the first two that will surprise you. It's actually pretty funny and pretty awesome. Besides that, I saw the movie not that long ago, and besides a few decent jokes with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, there's not a whole lot of memorable things about the movie, so it's not going to turn into a classic or anything like that. The first one is awesome. The second one is pretty badass. This one is just okay. I would give it like a 6. I'll give it like a 6. Alright, so now we're going to talk about some new movies that are coming out. So, let's see what we got coming out soon. Well, this isn't soon. I actually don't know when it's supposed to come out, but apparently Ryan Gosling is going to be making a Wolfman movie for Universal. It's supposed to be some like addition to a Universal monster universe that they're creating. I guess it got started with the Invisible Man movie that came out recently, and Wolfman is supposed to be connected to it somehow. But I don't know when it's coming out. Probably next year. We'll see. Now here's a movie that's coming out to Netflix in July, so next month. It's called The Old Guard. It has Charlize Theron in it. Now, it looks kind of interesting. It looks like it's some kind of like action sci-fi kind of like superhero movie. I wouldn't really call it a superhero movie, but Charlize Theron is a part of some kind of like elite military squad or something like that, and apparently every single member of that squad is immortal, I guess. Kind of like, not like vampires or anything like that, but they're more like Vandal Savage from DC. They're immortal. They can't die, and apparently they found a new immortal, and they're kind of like bringing her into the fold. So it looks like it might be alright. I don't know. Charlize Theron, she's cool and all, but I don't know if she's cool enough to lead an action movie like that. Next in line is set to come out next year, sometime in 2021. I'm not really sure, but it's coming out to HBO. The HBO subscription that they came out with is a new cut of Justice League. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but over the past couple of years, there has been talks that there was a Zack Snyder cut to the Justice League, a version of the movie that was completely different in tone and story and pretty much quality than the one that ended up coming out. And it's supposed to be so much better or whatever. And I'm skeptical. I am super skeptical as to whether or not it's going to be any better than the one that we got. But over the past couple of years, all I've been hearing is how this movie was supposed to be so much better. This is the Zack Snyder cut. Now, the reason this is kind of important is because I do remember that when Justice League was getting made and when it was getting finished up, there were some issues. Zack Snyder was originally the director, and he did direct, I think, most of the movie for Justice League. And he's also the one who did the Man of Steel movie, and he's also the one who did the Batman vs. Superman movie. But during this movie, I think kind of towards the end, his daughter died. And when that happened, he decided to step away from directing and working for a while. And you can't really blame him for that, and nobody did blame him for that, but he did step away. So when that happened, they brought in Joss Whedon to come and finish it up. And Joss Whedon is the guy who directed the first 2 Avengers movies. So that is kind of why when the Justice League came out, the Justice League movie had a few more silly and funny moments in it. It was a little bit lighter toned than, let's say, the Batman vs. Superman movie, because Joss Whedon came in and finished it up, and he helped with the whole post-production, and he pretty much put his spin on it. Now, some people liked the movie, but some people did not. I am kind of on the side of did not. I was expecting a lot more from that movie. I thought the CG was pretty bad. I thought the story was alright. I thought the villain was stupid. I didn't like Steppenwolf at all. I thought that fight scene at the end of the movie sucked. There were some good parts of the movie, like when Superman fought the rest of the Justice League. I thought that was pretty cool. But overall, I didn't like the movie very much. But I've been hearing, the past couple years that Zack Snyder's cut was supposed to be way different. It was supposed to have a totally different kind of story arc to it, a totally different feel for it, and it was supposed to be longer as well. I know that one thing that they did was they limited how long they wanted the movie to be, which it caused a lot of, headaches when it came to editing the movie, which is one of the reasons why we got the version that we did. They wanted it no longer than 2 hours, and Zack Snyder's cut was going to be, longer than that. And that's why the movie was exactly, I think, like an hour and 59 minutes. They cut it down as best they could to get it right under that 2 hour slot. So if you like the Justice League movie, then maybe you'll be really excited for this version, because apparently it's supposed to be better. If you didn't like the Justice League movie, maybe this movie could change your mind, and it's something that you might look forward to. If you don't like any of the DC movies, then this movie you're probably not going to like this one either. So, am I going to watch it? Yeah. Am I going to pay for HBO Max in order to watch it? Hell no. I'm going to go freaking find it on the internet somewhere. I'm not paying for HBO Max. But I will check it out. I hope it's good. I don't think it'll be that much better than the other one, but we'll see. And the last movie I want to talk about that's coming out is Christopher Nolan's new movie, Tenet. They just dropped a new trailer for that movie, and I think it's supposed to come out next month, but with movie theaters not even really being open in most places, they could push that back. Or maybe it gets sent straight to a digital media of some sort. I don't know. But for the movie itself, I will say I am pretty excited about it. This is probably the movie that I am most excited about this year. Even though there's a chance it might not even come out this year. Who knows, right? But still, this is the movie that I'm most excited about, because it's a new Christopher Nolan movie, and Christopher Nolan, if you don't know who he is already, he's a pretty badass motherfucker, like he just is. He directed Inception, he directed Interstellar, the Dark Knight trilogy. He's just badass. He's super good at what he does, and he's also one of the few directors that writes most of his movies. So his movies aren't just well made. His movies are usually original stories. They're not based off of a comic. They're not based off of a book, at least most of them. And they are original stories that he created. And Tenet is one of them. He wrote this movie, and he directed this movie. It stars, what's his name? John David Washington. This dude is actually Denzel Washington's son. Ooh, man, that's a big ass shadow to follow, isn't it? I mean, Denzel Washington is a freaking legend, so he has a tough road ahead of him, because he's always going to be compared to his dad now, isn't he? But this is a big step in the right direction, because if you want to make a good movie, you want a good director, and right now Christopher Nolan is pretty much, he's cream of the crop, like top 3 directors in the world. Anyway, so I saw the new trailer for this movie, and I will say it looks pretty damn good. But it's funny because while it looks really good, I still have no idea what the hell the movie is about. It is so hard to understand what is going on in this movie. As far as what I can tell from the movie, you know, like, it looks like it has some sort of like secret agent, spy, like government agency kind of like feel to it. You know, everybody in the movie looks like there's some sort of like agent. I don't know for what. And also on top of that, there seems to be some sort of like time travel element in the movie. I don't really know to what extent there is time travel in the movie, but there's definitely some time manipulation going on in the movie. You know, in one scene, he's doing some target practice. He's firing a gun into a target, and as he's firing, the bullet holes are actually disappearing from the target, and the bullets are going back into his gun. It's super weird. It's super weird. I don't understand it. I don't really understand what's going on, but it looks cool. So anyway, if you haven't seen the trailer, check it out. You know, you'll be just as confused as I am, but give it a watch. It's a pretty badass trailer. Christopher Nolan is a badass director, and if there's any director right now that you should be following his movies every time he comes out with something, it's definitely Christopher Nolan. Alright, so that's it for new movies coming out. Let's go ahead and talk about some movie news. You know, so just some random things that are happening in the world of movies and cinema or whatever. I'll start off with something that kind of sucks. Definitely sad. Ian Holm, he passed away recently. He was 88 years old. If you don't know who that is, he's a British actor who played Bilbo Baggins in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. He was a Frodo Baggins' uncle, the old hobbit. You know, he's had a pretty long and badass career. You know, he played the holy man, the priest, the father in Fifth Element. He played, I forget his name, but he came out in the first Alien movie. He was the droid, the one who went all crazy and tried to kill Sigourney Weaver. You know, he's come out in a lot of movies, and he recently passed away. He was 88 years old, so, you know, it looks like he died peacefully at a hospital due to his illness that was related to Parkinson's disease. So, much respects to Ian Holm. Here's some superhero news. Henry Cavill is supposed to be talking to reprise his role as Superman in a DC movie. It doesn't say if it's going to, you know, it doesn't say when it's going to come out. It doesn't say whether or not it's going to be part of the DC universe. It doesn't really say a whole lot much about it, but, you know, apparently he's talking about it. You know, a lot of people think that he left the role like Ben Affleck did. He didn't officially leave the role. You know, he just kind of stepped away because there wasn't much going on after Justice League. So I hope he does. I like him. I like him as Superman. I think he plays a pretty badass Superman, so I hope he comes back. But, I mean, it really just depends on the future of the DC Universe movies, and right now they're kind of just all over the place. Speaking of all over the place, Michael Keaton is actually in talks to play a version of Batman in a Flash standalone movie. So there is going to be a Flash movie. I think that it's going to have to do with the Flashpoint paradox storyline. So there's probably going to be some time travel and some otherworld stuff going on, you know, alternate universes, which I'm all for. I think that's pretty awesome. And, you know, from what I can gather, Michael Keaton is probably going to play some version of an older Batman in an alternate timeline or an alternate universe, which I think is pretty badass. And, you know, like, it's not super surprising, though, because a while back, whenever they announced that Robert Pattinson was going to play the next Batman in a solo Batman movie, which I think is super gay. Super gay. You know, a lot of people were saying that it would be cool if Robert Pattinson was brought to play a younger Batman, like Batman Beyond, and they were to bring Michael Keaton in to play an old Batman that, you know, guides him. And I thought that would have been a pretty awesome idea. And I don't think that's what this is, but apparently, you know, whoever is making these movies obviously probably, you know, heard that little cry from the public that Michael Keaton would be a good idea to bring back in. So I think it's super cool that, you know, they're bringing him back into the fold, and that he's going to play an old version of a Batman in some universe. I don't know if this Flash movie is going to be connected to the DC universe, or if it's going to be a completely standalone movie. I don't know if any other superheroes are supposed to come out in it. I don't know. You know, like, the DC universe is a complete mess. Sometimes they try to build a connected universe. Sometimes they just go and do whatever. And, you know, like, it... But hopefully the movie is good. I don't really like that dude who plays the Flash very much. I think he's kind of a pansy, but, you know, that doesn't mean the movie can't be good. So I hope that the movie's alright. Apparently Sony is supposed to be making some Spider-Man spin-off movie with a female chick, a female heroine called Jackpot. Never heard of her. Don't give a damn about her. Don't give a damn about the movie. It's a waste of time. But yeah, go ahead, put it out. Do whatever. Probably won't watch it. Probably just download it after it comes out. Fuck Jackpot. Fuck Sony. Whatever. Next, you know, if you're a big superhero fan, then you probably know that while DC doesn't make the greatest movies, they do make the best animated movies. Most people don't know about them. They don't come out to theaters. They come out straight to, you know, DVD or digital release, or however you end up watching it. But man, they make some really badass animated movies, and a lot of them are interconnected. So, like, you know, that whole, you know, universe that they were trying to build with their live action movies, they actually built a pretty badass universe with a lot of their animated movies. They seem to, and they pop them out pretty regularly. They seem to pop out a new animated movie, full length feature film animated movie every like 3 months, it seems. And apparently they're coming out with one pretty soon called Superman Man of Tomorrow. This was not connected to any of the other ones. It looks like just an origin story with Superman, but it does have Martian Manhunter in it. It looks like Lobo is coming out in it, so it looks pretty good. I saw the trailer. Is it super necessary? No. Is it probably going to be pretty good to watch? Yeah, definitely. So if you haven't seen any of them already, man, you like give them a watch. Like, go on to Google and put in list of DC animated movies. Take a look at the big ass list. You know, one of the first ones that came out was like Batman Under the Red Hood. That was one of the earlier ones. That was one of the best ones too. But, you know, like, kind of start in that area and then just work your way down, you know, until towards the present. Trust me, man. Like, if you can find the movies online, you will not be disappointed. It'll give you hours and hours of awesome superhero binge watching. Ooh, now the last piece of news I have, it's not exactly movie news. It's kind of movie news, but it's more TV show news. The show Cobra Kai. I don't know if any of y'all have watched it, but it's on YouTube. It's actually a YouTube exclusive show. There's not a whole lot of YouTube exclusive shows out there, and there's definitely not a lot of good ones. But Cobra Kai is the fucking best. I love that goddamn show. Now, if you don't know what it is already, what it is a show that takes place like 20 or 30 years after the Karate Kid movie, the original Karate Kid movie. So in a sense, Cobra Kai is a sequel to the Karate Kid. But the show starts off following not Daniel's son, but but Johnny, the villain, the kid the white kid that he fights from Cobra Kai in the movie, it starts following him. And, it turns out that he grew up to be kind of a loser, but he's a super funny loser. Like, the way he lives his life, he's really, like, stuck in the 80s, He drives, like, an old-ass Firebird, He still watches, like, old VHS action movies, It's super funny. And in the movie, he starts teaching this kid who lives in an apartment, in the same apartment complex. He starts teaching this kid how to defend himself. And he starts, like, busting out his old school karate that he hadn't used in decades. And the show is actually super funny. And Daniel-san does come out in it. He comes out in it later on. And if it ends up following both of them, but, like, Johnny is the one that you really care about. He just is. He's super funny. And, anyway, there were 2 seasons that came out on YouTube, and I loved both seasons. The first season was really, really good. The second season was pretty damn good as well. Well, anyway, it looks like the show is getting moved to Netflix. So, I mean, I guess Netflix bought it out, YouTube sold it or whatever. I don't know. But it looks like season 3, which I think is set to come out sometime next year, is going to actually be released on Netflix. So that means the first 2 seasons should be coming to Netflix pretty soon as well. So when it does, if you haven't watched it already, definitely watch it. It's not a super popular show because it came out on YouTube, and it wasn't for free on YouTube. It was on YouTube Red or whatever, so you had to pay for it. Not everybody gets that. But if you can find it on the internet, definitely watch it. If you want to wait till it comes to Netflix, man, definitely watch it. It's a super badass show. Yeah, I love that show so much. So check it out when it comes to Netflix. Okay, that's enough movie news for now. Now let's get to some fun. So, one great thing about movies is you can sit there and you can argue about which one's the best, which one's the worst, like the best this, the best that, what's the best buddy cop movie, or the best best comedy, what's the best Adam Sandler, Chris Farley movie, whatever, right? And when you start talking like that, you can't help but start creating a top 3 or a top 5 or a top 10 list. So that's exactly what I'm going to make right now. I'm going to make a top 5 list. And I'm going to do one of these for every podcast, or something, with a competitive nature for every podcast. So the first one that I'm going to do is actually based off of a thread that I saw on a forum that I like to go on to. On this forum, somebody likes to make threads where he puts polls. He puts a polls up in it, and you can vote for what was your top 3 favorite movies of any specific year. And we're going to go ahead and start with the year that I was born, 1987. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the top 5 movies that I believe were top 5 in 1987. And then I'm going to give you the results from the poll, which movies ended up coming out as top 5. Now, 1987 was a pretty badass year. When you look at it and you look at all the movies that came out in 1987, man, you just can't help but think to yourself, God damn, that was a good year. And, we don't get years like that anymore. Let me just rattle off a few of the movies that came out that year. You can look it up for yourself, but let me rattle off a few movies. Predator, The Princess Bride, RoboCop, Lethal Weapon, Full Metal Jacket, The Lost Boys, Evil Dead 2, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Untouchables, Good Morning Vietnam, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Over the Top, Dirty Dancing, Spaceballs. Man, there was a lot of really good movies that came out that year. But which ones were the best? Which movies were top 5 material? So, I will start with my list. The movies that I think were top 5 that year. Coming in at number 5, The Princess Bride. That's a great movie. Super great movie. I remember when I first watched that movie. I remember watching it as a kid. Me and my uncle, we used to go to the VHS rental store, right? We used to go to the VHS store and rent movies all the time. I remember one day he comes home with The Princess Bride, and I remember looking at this this movie cover as a kid and thinking to myself, what is this freaking faggot shit? Like, The Princess Bride? That sounds super gay. Like, what is this? Why did you bring this? And this is me as a kid thinking this, right? But then we watched the movie, and man, I loved it. I've loved it ever since, and I've watched it plenty of times since, and everybody loves it. You know, it's a super, super popular movie. It's definitely a classic. It's a great movie. Number 4, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That's such a good movie, and it's got 2 freaking comedy legends, John Candy and Steve Martin. I mean, that movie's awesome. You know, it's kind of a holiday movie. It does take place around Thanksgiving. I think even close to Christmas. You know, so it's a good movie. Definitely watch it if you haven't already. Most people should have already watched all these movies, but great movie. Number 3, Lethal Weapon. The best buddy cop movie there is. Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. Awesome movie. I hear there's even a TV show out for it. I haven't seen it, but I hear that it's actually like been out for a few seasons now. I didn't think it'd last that long when I heard a few years ago that they were coming out with one. I thought it was just gonna, come out with one season and get canceled, but apparently it's supposed to be pretty decent. I don't know. Number 2, Over the Top. Now this is a dude movie, and is it technically a great movie? No, it's pretty cheesy. It's the acting isn't super great, but what it lacks in, like technical ability, it makes up for in just like pure heart and awesomeness. Over the Top is an awesome movie. It's kind of hard to explain it to somebody because you're gonna be like, oh, it's this movie about this truck driver who arm wrestles, and it's like an arm wrestling movie, but Over the Top is awesome. I love Over the Top. And the number one movie that came out in 1987, the year I was born, Predator. Hell yeah. Predator is the shit. Dude, like that is like Arnold Schwarzenegger at his freaking peak of movie making, his action, like king of action movies. And Predator is one of the greatest action movies of all time. It's one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. It's got one of the greatest and most iconic aliens of all time. It's got a really badass ensemble cast of tough guy, heroes. It's got some super badass quotes that you can still use till this day. It has, the awesome freaking bicep handshake between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Apollo Creed. It's such a good movie, such a badass movie. Now, let's see if the internet agreed with me. So this poll was posted on SureDog. Now it's an MMA website, but they do have a subforum called the Mayberry Lounge, and a lot of people like to talk about movies there. And there's quite a lot of people on there. So if you ever get a chance to check it out and you want to just chat about movies, check it out. SureDog. SureDog.com, forums, Mayberry Lounge. So anyway, it was posted in the Mayberry Lounge, and let's see which movies came out in the top 5. Now I'm going to say right now that I had a little bit of a dispute with this poll because for whatever reason, he either forgot or chose not to put Over the Top on the list. And that's just some bullshit. Like, that's just bullshit. I was pretty pissed off about that. I wrote my congressman. I complained to the newspaper. I was like, this is some bullshit. Over the Top deserves more respect than that. But whatever. Okay, so obviously Over the Top's not going to be able to make the top 5 list on this poll. So let's see which movies did. Coming in at number 5 with 23 votes, 19% of the votes was Lost Boys. The Lost Boys. I can't hate on that. The Lost Boys is a badass vampire movie. It's a badass movie, period. I watched it just like a few weeks ago, and it's still a really good movie. So, it's a good choice. It's not my choice, but it's a good choice. Coming in at number 4 with 31 votes, The Princess Bride. Also a good decision. The Princess Bride is awesome. It's a great movie. Now, these two movies actually got tied for number 3 with 34 votes each. Lethal Weapon and Full Metal Jacket. Full Metal Jacket is a pretty badass movie. It's not really my kind of movie. Like, I've seen it. I like it. It's a good movie. You could even call it a great movie. It's just not my style of movie that I like to watch and enjoy. You know, it's kind of a weird movie, you know, but it is good. So, do I think it deserved to tie with Lethal Weapon? I don't know. I'm a little on the fence about it, but, you know, it is a good movie and I can't hate on it. Coming in at number 2 with 41 votes, I was actually kind of surprised about how much love this movie got, is RoboCop. Now, RoboCop is not a bad movie. It's a pretty awesome movie, but it is definitely on the aged side. Like, it hasn't aged very well. You watch it and it looks super old and cheesy, but it is a super fun movie. It's a cool movie. You know, RoboCop is an icon, you know. So, do I think it deserved the number 2 spot? No, not really. But I mean, it like, respect to RoboCop though. And coming in at number 1 with 89 votes, that's 74% of the vote, is Predator. Hell yeah, Predator. That's up there. That is super up there when it comes to action movies. So, much respect to Predator. So that's it for the top 5 list. If you have any types of top 5 ideas that you might want to see posted and talked about in my podcast, just let me know. Throw something out there. Give me some ideas. You know, like I could always use new ideas. But yeah, just let me know what you think. All right, now we're on to the last part of my podcast. So, are you ever sitting there on Netflix or Hulu or you know, whatever streaming program or movie app that you have? You ever sitting there just scrolling through trying to think of something to watch? You know, I used to do that all the time, and I still kind of do it sometimes. But now I make myself a huge list of movies that I love, movies that I love rewatching, movies that I haven't seen in a while and want to rewatch, or movies that I have never seen but always meant to watch. If a movie pops in my head, I put it down on my list. That way, later on, when I get home from work and I'm ready to watch something, I'm not sitting there for 20, 30 minutes trying to think of something to watch. I can just pick right off my list. So these are 5 movies that I have watched recently that I think you should watch. Some of them are just really good movies that are worth rewatching, and some of them might be older, maybe even obscure movies that you should definitely watch. So I'm going to go ahead and start from newest to oldest. The newest movie on my list, Panic Room. It came out in 2002. I watched it recently. It's got Jodie Foster in it. It's a movie about, you know, she buys this new place. The house happens to have a panic room in it. And the same day she moves in, her and her daughter, 3 burglars come in because they want to steal something from that panic room. Well, it just so happens that when the burglars come in, they lock themselves inside the room. So it causes this big ordeal, right? It's a pretty good movie. You know, it's a kind of like drama thriller type movie. I actually remember seeing it in theaters. You know, Jodie Foster, you know, she's a damn good actress. The movie also has Forrest Whitaker in it. It has a teenage Kristen Stewart in it, and I don't really like her, but she doesn't bring the movie down. So it was directed by David Fincher. He's the same guy who made Seven, so you know, that's plus points on it. Definitely worth watching. It's a good movie. Next movie, made in 1996, Twister. Twister has Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt in it. It's a movie about tornado chasers, you know. It's just a super fun, enjoyable movie. It's kind of like a comedy, action, adventure type movie. I think it's actually on Netflix right now. Most of y'all have probably seen this movie. It's super popular, but every time I watch it, it's still super enjoyable. You know, it has very high rewatchability. Is it a great movie? Not really. You know, it's nothing super special. But it's got a lot of character to it, and it's super rewatchable. And sometimes having high rewatchability is worth more than, you know, being a masterpiece of a type movie. Another movie I watched recently, made in 1994, Drop Zone. This has Wesley Snipes in it. You know, it's an action movie. It's got some comedy in it. Wesley Snipes plays a U.S. Marshal. There are some guys who hijacked a 747 and then jumped out of it with parachutes. Nobody believed him when he said they jumped out of the plane. So he goes investigating it by, you know, meeting up with some skydiving people, and he solves the case. But it's a pretty badass movie. Wesley Snipes, you know, back in his prime. Wesley Snipes is awesome. I do love Wesley Snipes. I think he's a damn good actor, and he's also a really good action star. Next one, made in 1989, Warlock. I don't know too many people who have seen this movie. I'm not saying nobody's seen it. A lot of people have, but your average person usually has not seen this movie, or maybe they did see it, but it's been so long since they've seen it, they don't remember anything about it. It's a pretty cool movie. You know, it starts off with, it takes place in the past. I think in Scotland, there's a Scotsman who is trying to kill this warlock who killed his bride or his wife, and somehow they both get transported through time into the present day. I say present day, it's in the 80s in the movie, but they get transported to the present day, and the movie is about the Scotsman hunting the warlock, and the warlock looking for a book that can help him like unravel the universe or something like that. It's actually a super cool movie. It's a super enjoyable movie. You know, if you like kind of like fantasy, kind of like a little bit of element of horror in it, with magic, this movie is awesome. You know, yes, when you're watching it, a lot of the effects are super old and pretty bad, but you know, it's not about that. It was never about that. It's about the movie itself, and the movie itself is really good. Give it a watch. Warlock, 1989. And the last movie on my list, from 1985, Brewster's Millions. This has Richard Pryor in it. It's a pretty popular movie, especially if you like Richard Pryor. It's probably one of his most popular movies. But if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's super awesome. Super good movie. In the movie, Richard Pryor, he inherits money from a rich dead great uncle that he didn't even know he had. But his uncle wants to teach him a lesson in the process of inheriting that money. So he has two different stipulations. He can either inherit $1 million, no questions asked, walk away, or he could inherit $300 million. But in order to get it, he has to spend $30 million in 30 days and have nothing to show for it afterwards. He can't own any assets. He can't have anything in his name afterwards. He basically has to just burn through it all. And he's not allowed to tell anybody. He's not allowed to tell anybody why. So the entire time he's burning through money, and he looks like an asshole, you know. But it's a super good movie, super funny. Richard Pryor is awesome in it. Also, John Candy comes out in it. He plays his best friend, and John Candy is awesome as well. It's directed by this guy named Walter Hill. Most people don't know who he is, but he's a pretty badass director. He directed 48 Hours, and I think he directed Trading Places. Maybe. I'd have to look back into that one, but definitely worth watching. Awesome movie. I watched it just a few days ago. Check it out if you ever get a chance. I don't know if it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime, but do a little hunting, man. There are ways to find movies out there. Don't be lazy. Use that internet. Anyway, that's the end of my podcast. Thanks for watching. This was my very first episode. I hope I didn't do too bad. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you something to listen to on your drive to work, or on your, on your trip, or, just sitting at home doing nothing, bored. I hope you got some good information out of it, and I hope you just, enjoyed it, period. But yeah, definitely thanks. I don't know where I'm going to put this out to, but wherever you end up listening it to, if you can subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you have any recommendations for stuff you want talked about or want to hear about, just throw it into the comments section of whatever medium that I use to upload this to, and whatever you're listening to. But yeah, thanks. I'll see you later.
Congratulations, you have reached the end. Before the self-destruct sequence has been initiated, please make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Even though you will be destroyed, you can at least